Wanted to just do a video to address this question here. Thought it'd be easier that way. Here. Okay, so basically what's going on, the difference between uh, ha'aim here. Let me zoom that in a little bit here. Okay, yeah. So ha'aim and ba'aim. The difference here is going to be this. So if you wanted to say, like you've got here, with the mother, this would be bait. Now you put the dogish in there because it's beginning a word. And then what ends up happening is you have, you end up with aim. You have ha, aim. And I assume you understand that the reason why we've got a kametz here is because the aleph can't take the dogish of the definite article. So the dogish drops out, and then to compensate for the loss of the dogish, the patak lengthens to a kametz. That's what we call compensatory lengthening. Right? So that's why we get a kametz here instead of a patak dagesh. And so what happens is, if you want to say with the mother, think of it this way. This bait just covers up the hay. Just sits right on top of it. And so what you end up with is the bait, and then you've still got the kametz, the aleph, sere, mem. You get ba'aim there. If you wanted to say with, because remember, I should have put that up here too. The with preposition has the shavah. So if you wanted to say with a mother, we'll leave the article off of aim, and then we just put these together. So bait, shavah, aleph, sere, mem, the aim. And so the difference between the preposition with the article and without the article is, without the article, you end up with the shavah. Sometimes it'll be a hirik if you have two shavahs at the beginning of a word. Hebrew doesn't like that. So sometimes the first shavah will shift to a hirik. But if you can explain the vowel that the preposition has as remnant from the definite article, then that's a clue that aim here is definite. Because really what's happening is the bait is just covering the hay. So if you were to take a word that does not use compensatory lengthening to make it definite, like davar, and you wanted to say the word, you would say ha davar. And here, the dalet has the weak dagesh because it begins a word, but down in this one, this dagesh is now a strong dagesh, a doubling dagesh, because that's part of the definite article. If you wanted to say with the word or with a word, the difference would be you add your bait preposition to ha davar, and that's going to end up giving you, remember, the bait preposition just covers up the hay, and it doesn't need the shavah anymore. So you end up with bait, patach, dalet, dagesh. In this case, it's now a dagesh forte. Kametz, bait, kametz, reish. That would be with the word. If you wanted it to be with a word, the difference would be bait, shavah, dalet. And in this case, that dalet, that dagesh goes back to a weak dagesh because we don't have the article here. And we go kametz, bait, kametz, reish. And so this would be the difference here. And I just realized that I tried to give you a better example where you can actually see the definite article from the patak and the dagesh. But because dalet begins with the bagad kafat letter, that could be confusing. So let's do one more here without the bagad kafat. Let's just do, we have sus, and then to make it definite, we have sus. Okay? Now if we wanted to say with Oops. We wanted to say with the horse. That bait is just going to cover the hay. So we get bait, and then we can take off the hay, I guess you could say, but we're left with the patak, dagesh, and so that would be with the horse. If we wanted to say with a horse, we would just have bait, shavah, samik without the dagesh, sus. So here you can see the difference between basus and basus. This one you can see that the definite article is still there under the bait because you can still see the part that sticks out from the hay, which is the patak and the dagesh. But down here we don't have any sign of a definite article. We have no hay, obviously, but we also have no kametz dagesh or no patak here. So there's no reason to think that this would be definite. Now, I did mention that sometimes the lack of the definite article may not leave a shavah there. If we wanted to do something like with a, you guys haven't had this word yet, but it's the first word I think of that starts with a shavah. It is the word kli. Oops. So the word kli is the word for vessel or instrument, or I mean, sometimes you could translate it as thing, but it's basically an object, would be another way of translating it. So depending on the context, it might be an object for eating, so you might say a vessel or a cup. It might be an object for fighting, so you might say like a weapon. It might be an object for doing some task, like a tool or an instrument or something like that. But when we put these two together, beit shavah, kaf shavah, oh, and I don't use the dagesh there, kaf shavah, lamed hirik yod, we get this double shavah at the beginning of a word, and Hebrew does not allow that. And so what has to happen here is the beit is going to shift its vowel to a hirik, and then you get the kaf shavah, and then you get the lamed hirik yod. So we go to bikli. But again, you know that this does not have a definite article because kaf can take the dagesh of the definite article, and kaf does not have the dagesh of the definite article. Further, you're never going to use hirik as a definite article vowel. So those signs right there tell you, even though it's not a shavah under the beit, it was originally, but Hebrew doesn't allow for that, so we had to shift that first shavah to a hirik. But even though you don't have the shavah there, it's still indefinite. This would be with a vessel or with a instrument rather than with the instrument. So I hope that makes sense. If you have any other questions, let me know. But this can be something that's a little bit tricky because it's not always as straightforward as, seeing the patak and dagesh. Sometimes you get a word that begins with a guttural, and so instead of a patak, you end up with a kametz here with no dagesh. Sometimes you have a word like davar that has a dagesh already, but before the article, and actually this should not have. Oops. Oh boy, what have I done? There we go. There we are. Okay. Yeah, this one should not have a dagesh here because it doesn't begin a syllable. But either way, what we're getting at here is, remember, your article manifests in several different forms. Sometimes it's a hey patak dagesh. Sometimes it's just a hey patak. Sometimes it's a hey kametz with no dagesh. Sometimes it's a hey segel with no dagesh. it takes different forms, and so you have to know what those different forms are so you can recognize them when it's not as simple as a patak dagesh. But once you understand that the bait is really just covering up the hay, and so all the other parts of the definite article that aren't the hay will still be there, that's when, for me at least, it gets a lot easier to recognize which of these has the definite article and which of these does not. So like I said, let me know if you have any other questions or if that's still unclear, but hopefully that makes sense for you.